See this? It used to be this, and that, and all of that, and so much more. Compost is the natural decomposition of materials that we see and use every day. And from our backyards to our kitchens and even our offices, the raw material for making compost is all around us. And with a few simple steps, all of that becomes this sooner or later. One of my favorite sayings is feed the soil and let the soil feed the plants. And my favorite ingredient for that is compost. Now the best part is you can make it at home for free from ingredients you'll find inside and outside the house. People want to compost from the kitchen, but they're worried about the smell. Well, you know what? A simple solution. Get a stainless steel canister. It's a great way to store those ingredients from day to day. Fill it up and then take it out to the compost pile. But the beauty of this is it doesn't absorb those odors. This works great, and just store it under the counter. Now what about beyond the kitchen, like your office? Well, we get a lot of paper there, right? Well, the paper itself can go straight into the compost, but a better way is to shred it first because it will break down more quickly. It's a great component. But something you don't want to put into your compost, at least for me, those window envelopes, although the paper works for breaking down, those windows themselves, not very well. So I leave these out and send those to the recycling center. Now, the more you look around your house and your office, the more you're going to see that can go into your compost. And all of that's from just inside the house and the office. Now from the outside, you're probably never going to have a shortage of ingredients for your compost. And the same rule of thumb applies. If it comes from the ground, it's a good candidate for right there. So let's start with the grass clippings. If you don't grass cycle, that means putting the grass clippings back into the lawn, then you're going to collect them and put them into your compost because this is a great ingredient. Now in the fall especially, you're going to have lots of leaves, and you certainly want to add those as well, and also the twigs that are going to fall down. But be mindful of how thick they are, because the thicker, the longer it's going to take for them to break down. So keep these thin. And as you do your garden cleanup, you want to put these in the compost as well, with some caveats. Now, if there are any diseases on your plants, when you think about adding them, leave them out and get them off your property, because those diseases can actually persist if your compost doesn't get hot enough. You end up adding those diseases back next season. And the same thing applies for weeds. Now these are about to go to seed, and I don't want to add these to my compost because if it doesn't get hot, again for the same reasons, these seeds can persist all through the season. I can add these back to my garden next year, and I don't want to do that, and I'm sure you don't either. So once we become a fan of compost, it seems like we can never make it fast enough. But you know what? There are some tricks to speeding up the process. Now the first thing we often hear about is this ratio of greens to browns, and that's where a lot of people kind of get hung up and intimidated, but it's so simple. Now when we talk about greens, we're talking about from the outside, plant clippings and grass clippings, you know, basically anything that's green. And from inside, we're talking about those fruits and vegetables, and you want 1 part green to 2 parts brown. Well, what are the browns? From outside, that's going to be your sticks and twigs and all the leaves, and from inside, basically your paper products. Like remember that paper we shredded and the cardboard? That's your brown. Now the next thing to speed up the process, make everything as small as possible that's going into your compost. Like your plants, I'll either cut them or clip them or even tear them, but the smaller the better. And I do that also with my sticks and twigs. Remember I said go with the thin ones? That's because they break down a lot faster. With the paper, I shred the paper. Remember, that's because it breaks down faster. In 2 weeks, you won't even recognize this. Now the third thing you want to do to always speed up the process is to make sure that you have moisture in your compost, about like a damp sponge. I do it about once a week. The fourth thing is to make sure that you always turn it to introduce more oxygen. That helps everything break down faster. And the beauty of all that is you can do it at the same time. So add some water, turn your pile, add some more water, turn the pile some more, and you're good to go. But the more that you do that, the faster you'll have your compost and the sooner you'll be using it in your garden.